This week on our Business and Investments webinars, we bring you one of a series on investing in Kenya with the Kenyan North American Diaspora Circle, commonly known as KNADS. And it's recently launched investment arm called KNAD PLC. Our guest panelist in this two-part series is our Ambassador David Gasheru, Deputy Chief of Missions at the Kenyan Embassy in Washington, D.C. Welcome. Now today, it's my pleasure to host a galaxy of ladies who are behind KNADS and its membership. KNADS, as you all know, is one of the leading diaspora, what we call circles in the layman's language abroad. And KNADS is doing a lot of stuff back at home. So today we wanted to speak to the leadership and just see how KNAD came about and how far it's gone, but more specifically, we're going to zero in on the recently launched, what Waisho calls PLC. We're going to learn more about what PLC means. But before we even do that, today our guest of honor and really the person who is going to speak to us at most is our Excellency, Ambassador David Gasheru. David is, for all of you who don't know, is part of the diaspora. He understands diaspora issues because he spent most of his life in the diaspora. So he's the best link that we have between Jamhuri ya Kenya and Kenyans living abroad, especially in the US. So it's always a pleasure to have Ambassador Gasheru on our show. And before even we go further, I'd like to introduce Ambassador Gasheru to just speak to the KNADs, the ladies that are behind what's going on right now, because this show is about them today. Ambassador Gasheru, karibu sana, and please introduce yourself to our ladies and just tell us, give us the latest news about investment opportunities out of Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Dr. Mackenzie, Chris, I see Washo Lango, I see Marianne Getz, I see Otieno, I see Mashari, I see Opio, I see Nyaga, and I see Durango. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to meet with you. One of my service delivery is connecting with the diaspora and encouraging diaspora investing back home in Kenya. And I want to assure you that Chris invited me last weekend. He didn't invite me, but Chris invited me last weekend. But I was graciously happy to come and I think leverage on the discussion we had last weekend on the fact that Kenya and the United States are in the verge of initiating US free trade agreement between Kenya and the United States. As most of you are aware, for the last 50 years, US has always been a good friend for African countries. Even from the time the African countries in the 50s and 60s were transitioning from colonial to government. But we have most of the investment in Africa has always been through government, US government, USAID, through UNDP, through UN, and through NGOs, through civil society, in the civil leaderships and all that. But really what has been missing and what has been lacking in the private sector. And to private sector is where you guys come in. And the timing is perfect for you. And what you're doing right now is exactly what the fundamental outcome of our FTA between the United States and Kenya is about foreign direct investment. And foreign direct investment, the missing link has been the private sector. And the missing link has been creating enablement or creating an environment where the business environment in any other countries of Sub-Saharan Africa has certainty. That uncertainty has been the challenge of any investor coming from the United States to come into Kenya to do an investment, because most of the problems we have had since independence in Africa, in Sub-Saharan Africa for that matter, are what is called general special preferences, which means they are in favor of the African countries. They have no reciprocal to it. We feel Kenya is at a time where our financial foreign exchange systems, our economic arrangements, and this is to the feeling of most of East African countries. I was on the final phase of opportunities right now that are very applicable to leverage on the existing free trade agreement between Kenya and the United States. Number one, as I was talking about, is the manufacturing sector. And the manufacturing sector I was talking on was in the textile industry. On the textile industry, we have a lot of economic free zones, EPZ zones. And one of the best examples I always give is in Naivasha, where we have abundant extra energy because of the geothermal power, renewables. It's going to be there for the next 20 to 30 years. So that's one area that you can put in your factory and all that. You can look for textile mills. There are so many textile mills, especially in the south, that are going down because all the industry is going to China. There is no reason why you cannot, as a Kenyan investor, go down to Mobile, Alabama, or go to Mississippi, or go to Kentucky, and look for those old mills and transfer that technology back home. It's possible. That way, that all the textile that is produced in Kenya, all the yarn that's produced in Kenya, is actually manufactured in our country. Can you imagine how many jobs you're going to create out of that with free energy? Almost 2 cents per kilowatt hour in Naivasha. The other industry that is also very important is scrap metal. Right now, we don't smelt our own scrap metal, and you find a lot of issue with the stealing of cable, anything metallic, manholes, a lot of stealing of that stuff. All that scrap metal is taken out of the country for smelting. And that smelting creates what's called steel billets, B-I-L-L-T-S. Those billets are made, those are the ones that you find them in constructions, the one you make for steel constructions. We're still getting that from outside. There is no reason why not to build a metal smelting factory in a place like Naivasha. Again, cheap energy. Also, the advantage of that is one of the biggest assets of Southern Africa to this day that has not been touched is earth mineral wealth of African countries. If you have a smelting factory right now in Naivasha with the cheap energy from geothermal power, all the countries in East Africa, the DRC, Malawi, Tanzania, and all those countries, all the smelting right now of gold and all the earth minerals, they all go to Middle East. Why? They go by ship, they go by air, and all that. We should have our own earth smelting capacity. This is why you people in the diaspora should leverage that on. This is one capacity. If we leverage all our mineral wealth in our country, no country in Africa will have a deficit right now. So these are areas that I feel good. The other area that I feel is still energy, because we have opportunities in energy distribution, logistics. We still have a lot of resources in Southern Sudan. Somehow that oil has to go to exports. We still have a resource of gas in Southern Sudan. So there's a lot of logistics help in terms of pipelines. If you look at the network of United States gas pipelines and think of Sub-Saharan Africa as the next big thing, it's an industry that needs to grow to move some of these pipelines. So there's a lot of gas and energy projects that are out there that can be funded. And now with the FTA, we are creating an environment where investors know what they're dealing with. The investors have certainty of doing business in Kenya. So these are areas that you can get into, encourage other companies. The other industry that I pushed this last week is on technology. And one thing that I think is interesting to know that if you find most of the technology companies in this country, most of the people are big communities from India. There is no reason why we should not be able to overwhelm this country with our H-1B visa. There's no reason why we should not have a recruitment company somewhere in Austin, Texas, hiring Kenyans who are graduates in IT, who are graduates for universities, are certified in Cisco certification, are certified in Oracle certifications, are qualified with Unix administration, are qualified with Python programming, in HTML, are certified with Java. I had a meeting last week with Google, and Google actually promised to give us a quota. Google told me that every year there's a certain quota of H-1Bs they get from different parts of the country of the world. And there's no reason why we're setting aside, saying we want 6,000 Kenyans next year. The initial challenge we used to have was the issue of the presence of prometric centers in Kenya. Right now, there's a prometric center in Kenya. Now you can get all these certification courses you get. You can get all these, the courses that I mentioned, you can get them in Kenya and become certified. And with that certification and a bachelor's degree and some experience, you're guaranteed. So one of the things we are trying to negotiate in the early phase of FTA is to set aside quota system for H-1B visa for Kenyans who can qualify to come here. One of the other advantages of FTA is a special business visa that we're going to have. So if you're a business person, you have a special business preferences to come to the United States. So some of the horizontal stuff that we recognize with. That's one area that I'll go. The other area that is being discussed is post-COVID-19. One of the biggest post-COVID experiences that the Europe and United States experience is the need for diversifying their supply chains in terms of medical equipment, protective equipment, testing kits, and all that. They're all dependent on China, mainly, and the Asian giants. It also so happened that China, that's where the source of the epidemic was. So you found that right now in Africa, that's when we are doing testing now. We actually doing testing now because we got the test kits last month. The last 1 month is when we restarted test kits. The demand in Europe and the United States sucked up all the supply chain. We didn't have enough. To this day, if you order commercial testing kits, the wait time is almost 18 weeks to get the testing kits. So that's a challenge. So the importance of those people, and I'm talking those professionals who are here, who are in pharmaceutical industries, there's an advantage right now to influence your company, whatever you work with, to diversify the supply of the biopharmaceutical-based research materials right now. Everything right now comes from South Korea, Vietnam, China, Malaysia. All those countries and Asian countries are the ones that do the basic base materials for biopharmaceutical research. There's no reason why we should not diversify those areas in Sub-Saharan Africa, not only to support the global supply chain, but also to manage pandemics that happens in the future. So there's an advantage we can take of that. In a nutshell, those are other areas that I feel that are there. Each one of you has a niche. For Kenyans, I always like to give one example of a young Kenyan I've given an opportunity, and I've worked with him very much. He's right now doing a nanotechnology manufacturing facility in Nyeri, in nanotechnology, semiconductor manufacturing. He's a young guy. He came to this country almost 20 years ago. He has a lot of technology insight. His goal, he does semiconductor manufacturing for company Samsung and LG. And for some reason, he got stuck in Kenya with the COVID-19. And this is a diaspora. You know, he had a $20 million worth of equipment to start manufacturing facility in Kenya. But he came to us at the embassy and we helped him. We helped him get a waiver to move the equipment back home as an investment. And he's setting up the factory in Kimathi Institute in Nyeri. He's setting up the facilities right now. We are helping him. Because of the challenges of COVID-19, he's stuck there. He can't leave, but we are helping him to get started. Can you imagine how much skills transfer? And he's setting up a manufacturing facility in Kenya to supply other parts. He has clients in South Korea, he has a client in Malaysia, he has a client in the Philippines, he has clients in Bangladesh. But he's setting up the factory. Instead of having the factory somewhere else in Malaysia, he's moving the factory to Kenya. Those are the kind of cases that I would like to, at some point when they are fruition, I would like to experience with you. So the opportunity right now is right for us to be the gateway to sub-Saharan Africa. We have the opportunity to bring investors in Africa, to bring in their finance capacity, to bring in their technology in Kenya, and their market is in sub-Saharan Africa. All they have to take back from Africa is their profit, because the market is there. And the more we bring people in the middle class, 75% of the workforce by 2040 will come from Africa. We have to bring these people to the middle class. And this middle class will provide the goods and services that US companies provide. And this is our argument, that it is important, it's critical for us to bring jobs to sub-Saharan Africa and bring up people to the middle class. That critical volume of people in middle class are the ones going to make Africa the next China. So this is your opportunity right now. There's no better time than for you to invest. So to KNADS, I'll tell you, you are the right path. You can invest in your own country. You have access to central bank treasury bonds. You can put all your money on treasury bonds, and you work out of the profit that will come with treasury bonds. So the market is right now, and I cannot. And Chris told me about you. I researched you and I found it. And this is one of my service deliverables, is to engage you, to engage people in the diaspora, and give you the channels and give you the opportunities that what's opportunities out there. And anything I can do to help you market your product, market your housing project, market your circle, market your ideas. Because with circle, you can go far. You even with your circle, if you have enough capital, there are US government funding agencies. There are investors out there that I know who have minimum investment is $200 million. So there are people, if you have the capacity to build investment right now. In the US, with FTA releases their pension funds into sub-Saharan Africa. If that country would be Kenya, there's so much private investment that's potential out there. So thank you very much, Chris, and I hope you have a successful meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Nobody could have put it better than you have. You've outlined all the investment opportunities that exist, and I'm glad that the ladies are watching and are listening. So I'll take it back to Waishu to introduce to us our first presenter in this session, but we hope that our ambassador will stay around to at least get some one or two questions from the ladies, because even just looking at what is coming in, there's a lot of interest in following up on some of the issues that our ambassador has raised. So Waishu, please introduce our next guest, then we go on.
Very much, Chris, our host, and Your Excellency, the Ambassador David Gashero. Thank you very much for being in this session with us. I do have with me Dr. Lucy Mackenzie, who is the chair of the KNAD Circle, and I do have Marianne Getz, who is the interim chair of the KNAD PLC. I am also one of the board members of the KNAD SACCO, and also acting in the interim at the PLC. So the next presenter I would like to introduce to you all, it's an honor to have Dr. Lucy Mackenzie, and I would request to go for you to go on, Dr. Mackenzie, and give us the background of why the PLC was formed and why we are where we are.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris, our host, and hello, everybody. It is such an honor to be on this platform, sharing it with our Ambassador David Gashero. We in the diaspora feel like when we are talking to you, it's like we're talking to the president, because you're like our president over there. And so it is an honor to have you here with us to learn a little bit about KNADS. And to also give us, from your perspective, how we can leverage to become not just the support to the diaspora women, but also to be models of who we can become when we are engaged at that level. So KNAD was founded on social media, so social media is not all bad. It was a random post on Facebook by one of our co-founders, and the question was, what if 6,000 women could each have a contribution of $100 a month, and this was in July of 2016. How much money would we have by the end of that year? And so with that, 8 of us ran with the idea of what could happen, and 3 years and a few months later, we are close to 1,400 women and a capital, we can say we are worth over 350 million shillings. It doesn't sound like a lot, but considering how many people have been trying to start financial institutions that benefit the members, and they don't always work out to be successful, I want to say that KNADS and many other diaspora circles are proving that the diaspora can actually mobilize and become effective and leverage where they live to get the opportunities that you have actually outlined for us. So we opened our doors on March 7th of 2017. And by the end of that year, 10 months later, we were at 527 members, or right about there. And yet we had thought that if we were at 300 members, we would actually have been successful. So over the years, we are believing that we are going to grow. The typical local circle in Kenya, they are mainly for savings and credit, offering those services to the members. But as diasporans, we are not going every day to go buy cabbages, or we are not in the coffee industry that will be going to and fro to take loans. So as a diaspora circle, we are more inclined to be more of investors rather than just saving. And so we needed to be able to provide opportunity for our members to be able to invest in well-vetted products, because you know the diaspora story. I am sure you have met many diasporans in every state that you engage with, who have spent their money and gotten nothing. Or we get companies that come to the diaspora, to the US, to Canada, wherever we are in the diaspora, and they sell us this awesome product. And because we live in countries where things function properly, we tend to have forgotten how scrupulous some of the people who come to sell us those products are, and they disappear with our money. So thank you so much, Ambassador. We have learned so much right now from you, but we do have quite a number of asks. So Washa, do you want me to just go on, or do you want Marianne to go?
I would like for Marianne to go and talk a little more into the PLC. and what it is and why PLC of all the investment arms that are out there. I'm sure our honorable ambassadors and most Kenyans know about them. So I would like for Marianne to go ahead and speak about the PLC specifically.
Thank you so much, Washo. Thank you, Chris, and one ambassador. Thank you so much for your presence here and for your wonderful insights into what you have out there for us. And we will look forward to coming to see you so we can see how to leverage some of these offerings you have and hold our hands to the right tables. So we're looking forward to that and to talking more about KNADs and other opportunities that other people in this forum might have. And thank you so much, Lucy Mackenzie, our chair, for giving that introduction. So my name's Marianne Getz. I'm in North Carolina, and I'm one of the founder members for KNADS SACCO, and I sit as the secretary, the honorary secretary, and I'm also the chair, the interim chair for the KNADS PLC, which we just recently launched. As Lucy Mackenzie has mentioned, one of the biggest challenge we have in the United States or even in diaspora is transferring our monies to Kenya and investing in manner that will be beneficial to us and even to those, in the country without falling into the wrong hands. Founding KNADS has brought a lot of benefit to our members. And just briefly to tell you a quick story about one of the ladies here in North Carolina that I have been working with. She's elderly, she takes care of children. And she left home because she came to join her family here, but she had some problems at home, land squabbles and that kind of stuff. So she moved here and doesn't make much money. And the first thing she told me is, I want you to hold my hand and get me into this SACCO, because I know SACCOs do so well in Kenya, but I'm not in Kenya and I'm getting a little more than I could have been getting in Kenya while I'm here. I want you to hold my hand and help me get something of my own. So this mama sends me money every month, which I deposit in her SACCO account. She's a member, but she doesn't even know how to operate the phone and, the iPhones and all that, smartphones. So I do all that for her. And she said she wanted to buy a piece of land. With our Nairobi office, we worked together, found her a good piece of land, helped her to make sure she has enough money in her savings so that she can qualify to get a loan. She got her loan. And yesterday, I got a phone call from Nairobi office telling me that the transaction is through. Her title is in our Nairobi office, and all she needs to do now is complete paying her loan. That is what we are about. That is what KNADS is about. KNADS is about helping women realize their dreams, realize their potential, and get that financial freedom and get that investment that they can say, I own this, that when I leave this United States of America, regardless of my status, I have something to call my own. That's why we sit in this board of KNADS and we work to help these ladies and our members and even ourselves get where we want to get and get that freedom and independence. Now, there are a lot of restrictions as to what a SACCO can do. SACCOs, like the word says, is an abbreviation of Savings and Credit Corporation, cooperative organization. It's limited by its functions. And to go beyond that, there's a lot of stones and, chess pieces that have to be moved in order to accommodate. the unfortunate thing is that when we formed KNADS, we realized that even the Office for Cooperative did not have a formula on how to work with diaspora, because our biggest goal was not to save and get credit. Our biggest goal was to invest. And so even now, the office is still working ways to help us transform from the traditional circle, because we don't fit into the circle models in Kenya. We don't fit in that, like Dr. Lucy said there. We needed something beyond just a circle in order to be able to invest and to meet our goals. So even registering an investment arm of the circle was challenging, because our housing would only limit us to housing. If we went ahead and formed a transport circle, it would only be limited to that purpose. Whereas our members were looking into agriculture, they are looking into solar power, they are looking into geothermal, they are looking into wind power, they are looking into growing bamboo for various things. So we were very limited with what we could do. With consultation from our legal counsel, we thought the best vehicle for KNADS would be the PLC, Public Limited Company.
That concludes our first part in a series on investing in Kenya with KNADS. Please join us again as we bring you the last part with the same panelist, Ambassador David Gasheru, and the KNADS leadership. See you again next week.